Islands are coral reefs. Underwater, these reefs have huge plate-like bases, which may extend in each direction between 200 and 400 meters to form a submerged coral forest. This forest protects the coral islands from dangerous waves. Corals are a very unique organism. Over a single night, they may expand into a reef or shrink to nothing. Above the water, they appear hard and crisp, but underwater, they are soft. These scientists are exploring the coral reefs around Zhangjiang Island with a motorboat, following a trusted international method. Their aim is to get a detailed picture about these submerged reefs and the creatures they support. From above, these coral reefs look like an underwater forest, except they're made up of the limestone deposited by corals, tiny living animals found in marine waters. Corals secrete calcium carbonate. After they die, this substance is left behind, on which a new generation of corals lives and grows. Year after year and century after century, calcium carbonate piles up into huge coral reefs. So what has made the Xisha Islands so fertile for coral reefs?
珊瑚呢，它生活的温度呢，一般都是在20来度的这个水域里面。这个20来度的水域呢，从地理这个带上来看呢，它是处于热带海域。因为我们海南吧，三亚以北就叫做这个边缘热带，三亚到西沙这一块就叫中热带，西沙以南，一直到南沙，那是赤道热带了这个区域，所以它正好处在这个热带的海域里面，水温呢也就是20来度左右，所以最适合珊瑚的生长。
This is their first stop. The scientists are ready for a major underwater investigation. They've been trained in diving, underwater photography, and data collection. Coral reefs come from corals, which are colonies of tiny marine organisms, no bigger than a couple of millimeters each. But millions of them come together to form these incredible underwater structures. Each of these tiny organisms themselves is flower-like in shape, with rings of brightly colored tentacles that fan out into thousands of fascinating shapes. They form underwater flowers, which can live up to thousands, even millions of years, if lucky enough to be spared from either natural or man-made disasters. However, not all corals can form coral reefs. Only corals which are nourished by a tiny algae called zooxanthellae can produce the limestone which builds up a coral reef. The algae live within the coral, using sunlight to make sugar for energy. These corals also get their nutrients by eating tiny floating organisms called zooplankton. At night, the corals come out to feed, stretching out their stinging tentacles to catch the zooplankton drifting along in the water. During the day, Zooxanthellae in their bodies produces sugar through photosynthesis. This provides the nutrition that corals need for calcification. Some coral polyps have no zooxanthellae in them. Because they have no lime skeletons, they will not form a hard reef after they die. These coral polyps are known as non-reef producers. What they produce is instead called gorgonaceae. Thousands of organisms gather to form an underwater garden. This cauliflower-like creature is a type of soft coral able to secrete limestone deposits. They are indispensable to this complex underwater ecological system. Just as in a forest, all the creatures and plants here are codependent upon each other. Cuttlefish has taken shelter among the coral. And what looks like iron wire here is another coral structure. It's formed by the bones of coral which live 10 meters deep in the water or inside caves. They grow only 4 to 5 centimeters each year. This sea fan is also a kind of gorgonaceae, earning its name from its distinct shape. It's found on cliffs facing the water current. Thousands of them form a huge fishing net, waiting for plankton to sail by. Sea fans, if they grow into the shape of a tree, treat the organisms dwelling inside them differently. Creatures inhabiting the branches have ample plankton to feed on. Those at the trunk have nothing to eat and eventually die. To treat everyone fairly, most sea fans are flat. This huge black coral may be hundreds of years old. It looks like a gorgonaceae, but feels very hard. Scientists concluded that it's not a gorgonaceae, but another kind of non-reef-making coral. Coral flowers in thousands of shapes and colors cover the entire sea bottom. Golden, snow white, bright red, all vying for attention. Dancing around them are planktons. This underwater world of coral reefs is particularly vibrant around the Zhangjian Island. Scientists are anxious to find out why and exactly how diverse its coral reefs are.
根据现有的记录，世界上的珊瑚大概有6000多种。我们海南的珊瑚呢，主要西沙这一块，总共有200多。
哇！乜你張電話單咁貴嘅？
咦，係用多咗數據服務喎。
我今個月冇用好多啫喎。
係咪你冇刪到軟件自動更新功能啊？尤其係離開香港嗰時，漫遊數據費更加貴㗎。
如果你覺得冇需要用數據服務，可以要求營辦商停咗佢㗎。
Check data usage. Enjoy mobile internet.
Red corals were once called fire trees. Most are found 100 meters below the sea surface in a whole range of shapes from pink and red to vermilion. They're smaller in size, and because they grow very slowly, they have a longer lifespan, a very hard body, and bright colors. This rare and beautiful coral is a treasure of the sea. Another treasure is blue coral, which got its name from its beautiful color, blue. Like red corals, the blue coral is also very rare. The black coral is also equally rare. So rare, in fact, that even the local fishermen may never spot one in their lifetime. This black coral living deep in the water is soft and very fine in texture. This is the only black coral collected in Xisha. Rose coral comes in many fascinating shapes, sometimes resembling a tree leaf, a tree branch, or just a simple lump. Usually they're no larger than 1 millimeter in diameter. Rose coral have many small holes and also protruding needles. As the biggest atoll lagoon in Xisha, Huangguang Reef is deep in the middle but shallow around its edges. Scientists are surveying this swirling reef at different depths: 5 meters deep, 10 meters, 20, 25, and plunging down to 35 meters. They did it along a 50-meter line, photographing corals and their healthy situation, as well as the amount of fish and invertebrates dwelling along there with the corals. Coral reefs are the richest ecological systems on Earth, supporting the greatest variety of life. They're a tropical garden, home to 2,500 kinds of fish, but only a tiny fraction can produce reefs. All the fish found in these reefs are brightly colored. To protect themselves from predators, they've adopted the colors of their surroundings. The stonefish is a champion at changing colors. When it's not moving, it looks just like a piece of coral. But the stonefish is a formidable creature. On its back are needles that can secrete poison, used to catch small fish or shrimps when they get too close. And this lionfish is also venomous. Its flag-like fins are highly poisonous, able to inflict painful wounds on humans and even kill other species. However, when it comes to beauty, the butterfly fish takes the crown. Over 200 types of butterfly fish have been identified. They're small and have very limited means to fend off danger. But the corals are very kind to them. When alarmed, these fish instantly take refuge in the branches of the corals and become invisible there. Butterfly fish are creatures of love. They're always in pairs, always beside their partner. A lobster is the king of shrimps. They're bad swimmers, but they crawl on the seabed with their 5 pairs of feet, never showing their faces during the day. They stay among the corals or caves, guarding their doorstep with their giant claws. Lobsters are solitary animals, but when autumn arrives, there's a great migration under the sea. A massive group of lobsters march along the seabed in a long line, staying together by the feelers on their heads, gathering more and more members along the way. But overfishing has seriously reduced their numbers in recent years. Single lobsters, or a small group of just 3 or 4, are sometimes seen closer to the water's surface. Catching them is as easy as pie for the fishermen, but it's a strategic game too. The lobster's favorite food is the conch. So, where there are conches, usually around the corals, there are lobsters. Corals are very vulnerable, and if lifted out of the water for just a couple of minutes, they die. Now, if you can't catch a lobster in the sea, you might think it's easy in a basin. But lobsters are tough fighters wherever they end up and refuse to yield. They've got quite a reputation. Strong and tough, they look like a cross between a dragon and a heavily armored shrimp. In the Chinese classical novel Journey to the West, the images of shrimp soldiers and crab generals come from lobsters. They have big eyes, but very poor eyesight, formidable claws, but a timid nature. They're easily scared.
这个龙虾是多少？怎么卖的
？120块钱1斤。
这一只有1斤吗？
没有，3、4两。
哦，海南那边是多少钱？
这边就便宜了，海南那边可能就200左右了。
这是什么鱼？
这叫石头鱼。
石头鱼啊，我怎么看着
它像石头。它如果这个在海里面呢，它跟石头一样，然后它会变什么颜色？你看到吗？它变动颜色就跟那个沙滩啊，那个海里面那个泥呀、那个沙是一样的颜色，所以你分辨不出来。如果你不是老练的熟手，你根本抓不到它。这上面有剧毒，就是这个背上脊梁背上，如果一刺到你的话，那就不得了了，知道吗？手马上就肿起来。
我能碰它吗？
不能碰，要碰就碰这个位置。
那上面有毒，我不能碰。
碰这里可以，你摸一下这里，可以摸这里，就这么抓起来。
抓出来我看看。哇，这怎么像一个人头似的？
像石头，
我摸一下。
你可以摸，中间不能摸，中间有毒。
哎呦，好重哎！这一个有多少斤？
估计有
啊，
估计有五六斤吧，哦，5斤以上。
The fishermen are returning with their boats heavily loaded, and these creatures, with their sharp needles, look ready to fend for their lives.
这个怎么鼓着，那个都瘪着呀？
这都气泡鱼。
啊，它这个生气了，就鼓起来了，是吧？
对。
那个都没生气。
Sea cucumbers are slow creatures which move with the small feet under their body. They first tilt their hind feet to hold the sand firmly before extending their body muscles forward while lifting their front feet. It looks like a rather complicated process for a very tiny step. When in danger, some species release their respiratory trees from their body through the anus to confuse their predator and escape. They then regrow their respiratory trees. Sea cucumbers can grow very large. This one is 90 centimeters long and a rare sight. Some 20 kinds of sea cucumbers live at the bottom of the sea around Xisha. Rabbitfish have small mouths, a shy temperament, and pelvic fins. Although beautiful to look at, they are in fact highly poisonous. Their bright color is a warning to predators. Often no longer than 10 centimeters, it is small and graceful. It's related to the conch. The rabbitfish once possessed a shell and gills, but evolution has taken both away. Now, it uses its skin to breathe through. Sea chestnuts live in groups and often stay at the entrance of the many caves which are found in coral reefs. This fish has long prickles. Most of the time, these prickles are extended, so it's almost impossible to drag the fish out of the cave. However, when they want to, they can pull in their prickles and move easily around in a narrow corridor. This is the clownfish. It's a faithful companion of the actiniae, a type of sea anemone, never leaving its home during its lifetime. Around the opening, actiniae have long feelers in rings which sway gracefully in the water. Yet these feelers, though beautiful, are also poisonous to most varieties of fish. Many, but not the clownfish. They have a fascinating relationship, these two fish. The clownfish act as bait for the actiniae, luring in prey. A victim is poisoned, being sent to the mouth of the actiniae. The clownfish is repaid by having a sanctuary among the actiniae's prickles. It's a relationship of trust and mutual help. The waters around Xisha are transparent. At noon, under the direct sunlight, the fish rise closer and closer to the surface. They also go to sleep in the evening, just like mankind. Yet this pattern gives the fishermen an advantage. They come when the fish are taking a rest, and each time they return home with a big catch.
下面你啃买啊，很多鱼啊，你要一见到鱼都很清新，那个脚很好。那个鱼啊，一般见到了你也游过来，跟你一起在游，它就划着鱼猎一长行的跟你走，很有势的。那大的鱼啊，一走就看一下，然后就看了好像它不是跟它同类的，它就盘回走。那小鱼啊就无所谓，就跟在你后面游，很好玩啊。鱼啊一般睡午觉就在那洞里，这晚上呢鱼就睡了，一般在傍晚它就吃饱了东西，或者它钻在洞里睡了，睡了我们一般的下养的时候，在鱼饵里捉鱼的时候就拿手电筒伸下去，它睡了就慢慢把个网嘛，慢慢的。用手，然后用一个铁棒，慢慢的把它搅这个网，然后就拿上来，很简单。
However, some fish carry parasites. To prevent disease from spreading, they have a doctor to help them. The dragonfish is that doctor. It eliminates the parasites by eating them. In return, this dragonfish is welcomed by everyone. Whenever it's threatened, other species protect it. The natural law of the sea keeps life balanced here. Big and small, the gentle and venomous, the beautiful and the ugly coexist in the coral reefs, an underwater city for all around Xisha Island.
Coming up, the Pulse.
Alicia?
Yes?
Welcome to the building. Engage in a battle to the death until only one queen remains.
Yes.
The Big Bang Theory, tonight at 8:30. Never in your imagination would you want to meet with them. Never in your life will you have the guts to mess with them.
There, look!
But these men. Dangerous Encounters. Saturday night at 10.
A leatherback turtle of this size is probably 270 years old. Most sea turtles migrate long distances in search of feeding grounds. They're guided by a remarkable navigation system, one that's still mysterious to mankind. Some believe that these great reptiles have a biological compass which enables them to determine directions during the day by the sun and by the stars at night. Others believe that sea turtles remember the scent and taste of the water of their birthplace. No matter how far they journey, they can always find their way back home. Their size is determined by age and type. Sea turtles have to surface for breathing. After millions of years of evolution, they've adapted themselves to life underwater and no longer need fresh water. Sea turtles have a very long lifespan. Many grow past 50 years. After they reach adulthood, both males and females have less noticeable marks on their bodies, yet males have a long tail and long front claws. Between May and August each year, it's their breeding season. They travel thousands of miles back to their birthplace, dig out pits, and lay their eggs. Only when they've refilled the pit with sand, leaving no traces, is it considered a job well done. They lay about 50 to 200 eggs, each about the size of a table tennis ball. It usually takes about 2 hours. Then they return back to the sea. But despite being hidden, the eggs are always under threat. Even the sea itself may destroy them. Two months later, baby turtles break the shell. After a few days of struggling, they emerge from the first time into this world. This amazing scene happens at night, and by the light of the moon and stars, they're able to find their way back into the sea. However, this is also a banquet time for many predators: birds, crabs, and carnivores. Only the luckiest baby turtles can make their way into the sea. But danger doesn't end there. How long must they struggle before they mature and can begin the cycle of life once more? One species is the hawksbill sea turtle. It has 13 scales on its back. In behavior, in appearance, they are distinct. One difference is their mouth, which is sharp and pointed, while round for other species. Another difference is their shells, which have scale-like shapes layered over each other. Other species have lines on their shell. Another difference lies in the edges of the shells. On other species, they're smooth. On the hawksbill, they're like zigzag teeth. Still another difference is in their temperament. The hawksbill sea turtle is hot-tempered. The hawksbill sea turtle lives at the bottom of tropical seas. They may live up to 1,500 years, the longest of any species on this planet. It's highly endangered. This particular species grows up to 1 meter long and 80 kilos in weight. It can, in need, withdraw its head and limbs into its shell. Summer is their breeding season, and March and April the time for laying eggs, about 200 each time. These eggs hatch at natural temperatures. After about 50 days, the babies emerge. They eat seaweed, small fish, crustaceans, and other soft-bodied creatures. The wind has picked up on the sea surface. Big waves have knocked the small boat against a reed and damaged its screw propeller. All means of communication have failed. The 3 scientists haven't shown up, and nobody can sail out in this weather to find them. 3 hours have passed and still no sign. White crests are rising in the sea. The alarms are being sounded. The seas are being scanned. At long last, a small boat appears in the distance. This islet, west of the Yongle Ring Reefs, got its name from its abounding coral reefs. Because of the shallow surrounding water, motorboats cannot get too close here. Scientists are surveying the local biological forms and geological conditions. This place is vital to their project because it's a hub of marine life on Coral Islet. The day's work is done. When they're back in their boat, the sun is casting a golden light over the Shisha Islands. It's also a golden time for the anglers. After dinner, by lamplight, they gather by the side of their boat and lower their baited hooks. Instantly, a school of herring arrives. Lines and rods are no longer needed. Each fishnet fetches a heavy load, and before long, over 50 herrings are brought on board. Almost everyone in this place is a master angler. The fatigue from a day's hard work and fishing is all worth it.
We may be trying our best to separate and recycle our waste.
Yet waste has been growing.
More than 10,000 tons of waste is being dumped in our landfills every day. The harsh reality is our landfills will be full before we know it. As part of a multi-pronged approach to reduce our waste, a modern incinerator is needed. Reduce, recycle, proper waste management.
At night, a remarkable scene appears. It's a miracle of nature at work. Coral insects are ejaculating billions of sperm. In the South China Sea, this is the season for coral insects to reproduce. Water temperatures begin to rise starting in April. Water currents are still weak then, and the coral at the bottom of the sea becomes active. Numerous coral insects begin to expand and almost simultaneously ejaculate into the water. It's a very rare sight. It only happens a few nights in a year for a very brief period of time. This collective ejaculation is a strategy for survival in a hostile world. It's feeding time for many other species. But because there are so many eggs, even after a feast, there are still leftovers. Lots of eggs in a really short time means there will be leftovers. Any longer, and the predators may come back to feed again. The eggs and sperms meet on the sea surface to make billions of baby coral insects. They take refuge in the floating substances and are almost invisible while making their way to a permanent home. After drifting for a period of time, they'll find a good place to settle down together. Then comes the great collective mission to build a new coral reef. After hundreds of millions of years, these coral reefs have grown into what they are today, small islets scattered around the Shisha Islands. Fishermen take them as their temporary refuge after they sail out in summer and before they return home in winter. These fishermen in Jiqing Islet also process their catch into dry food. Through them, scientists learned of a mysterious cave underwater. Legend relates it to the classical Chinese novel Journey to the West. With a local fisherman as their guide, the scientists head off to the cave. The fisherman points out the location on a reef. The water is blue within a 25-meter radius. Then it turns green. Scientists measure the depth. The device can penetrate 80 meters, but they get no results. They throw out a 120-meter-long fishing line, but still they can't reach the bottom. Diving seems to be the only solution. They first lower a 57-meter-long guide rope, the maximum depth prescribed for diving by the American Navy. Anything above 30 meters down is already likely to cause diving sickness. The rope ensures the diver will not be swept away by rapid currents. If a powerful current does sweep in, the diver can climb up the wall with the help of the rope. The diver is now 57 meters deep, where no light penetrates. In the pitch darkness, it's eerily quiet. The cave is cut off from the outside world. The diver decides to climb up following the rocks without using the rope. First, he sees some algae, then fish, and the closer he comes to the surface, the more life he sees. 5 meters below the surface, he comes across a heartbreaking sight: whitened coral. Healthy coral should be vibrant because of the zooxanthella, a symbiotic algae that live inside the coral. However, if the surroundings become unhealthy, the zooxanthella leave and the coral loses its color, becoming pale and sick. The coral insects are left to struggle in vain. The result is a slow death. Over more than 20 years, this sickness has infected many coral reefs in the world. Global warming, rising sea temperatures, reduced salt levels due to the increase of fresh water in the sea, ultraviolet rays from strong sunshine, together with many sources of pollution, are the culprits. But it's not all irreversible. Zooxanthella can return and can bring life back to the coral reefs. Scientists have collected samples at different depths of the sea. It's stored in cans with ethyl alcohol. After they return, they'll do lab tests in hope to find zooxanthella that can endure the changes in environment. However, there are other culprits, such as the acanthasta, a kind of starfish. It's the greatest natural enemy of coral, and around Jinqing Islet there are many. Starfish move around on their tube-like feet. They're hungry creatures with no table manners at all. They simply cling to the surface of coral, wrap it tightly with their feet and body, then suck out all the coral insects inside the victim, leaving only the skeleton of coral behind. The starfish is a big eater, consuming quantities of coral dozens of times more than its own body size. They're aptly called coral killers, and they're never alone. They attack in millions, eating anything in their path. Their comeback is related to storms which bring nutritious salt from the land into the sea. This boosts life on the sea surface, a perfect source of food for baby starfish. An adult starfish lays hundreds of thousands of eggs in one go, and with plenty to eat, plenty survive. In the past, little was known about this destructive creature. They tried in vain to control their numbers by hiring divers to cut them into pieces. Yet the starfish would die hard. Each piece cut off could grow into a new starfish. A new strategy to control them involves injecting a small amount of poison, just 1 milliliter, into their bodies. However, this strategy has proved very costly and time-consuming. The ultimate solution may lie on the land, not underwater, by protecting coastal lines and preventing overdevelopment. But this starfish also has a natural enemy, the trumpet triton. Hunting for this trumpet triton should be prohibited.
鹦鹉螺呢，它主要外形像个鹦鹉的嘴巴一样，勾勾的，很像。鹦鹉螺为什么这么名贵呢？它是远古的动物，基本是一个活化石了，所以鹦鹉螺是世界公认的比较稀罕的、珍贵的这么一种贝类。第二个呢，就是法螺，因为它就是我们平时的号角吹海号，渔民归来的时候吹喇叭，那个时候没有号，就是用这个当号吹的， 吧？是不是能够发号施令的意思啊？叫法螺啊，是吧？法螺呢，现在越来越珍贵，因为它外表很漂亮。第三个呢，就是唐冠螺。唐冠螺顾名思义，就是唐朝的冠，像个帽子一样，你外表一看就知道，像一个学士帽一样的。
The fourth kind is called the treasure shell. It symbolizes auspiciousness. Nautiloids are first-class endangered species in China. They live 2,000 meters below the sea surface. They are ancient, assumed to have appeared during the Paleozoic era, hundreds of millions of years ago. They are, in fact, living fossils. Most of the time we only see the shells which are left after they've died. These are washed ashore or to shallow water by the tides. Apart from these famous four, there's another kind, a giant called amber tridecan, which clings to the reefs. It's huge. Its shell can be a meter thick. This is the largest one found in Xisha, 90 centimeters in diameter. It has lived at the bottom of the sea for over 1,000 years. Most of the shellfish in Xisha are large and have a thick shell. That's because of the depth of the sea here.
Xisha 的海域吧，平均的深度是1112米，最深的地方那个深沟有5559米。
The reef, 150 nautical miles off Hainan Island, is the end location for this project. Around the North Reef, the waters are transparent and azure. The deeper, the darker the blue becomes. The sea bottom here is desolate, with little more than broken pieces of coral. Nothing is between 6 to 8 meters deep. Severe overfishing by extreme measures using explosives and poison is the culprit. All the shellfish are gone. Because coral is an expensive decorative item, some local fishermen and businessmen have damaged the sea bottom to fill their own pockets. The closer to the coast, the more serious the damage becomes, as seen in a curving line running from south to north. So far, according to the United Nations Environmental Programme statistics, up to 20% of coral resources have disappeared in the world, and 60% is seriously threatened. The coral reef is a treasured heritage of the planet. It has survived numerous natural disasters throughout history. Now, it may be lost forever if man is not careful. At twilight, the waters turn dark blue and the color extends all the way to shore. Their boat drifts like a leaf on the water. Were it not for the sound of the water, it's hard to realize that the boat is moving at 10 knots an hour. Here, the seas give yet another warning that all life on Earth is interdependent.
The heat. The passion. Colombia has always got something to celebrate. Discovering the World, the whole new series, Saturday night at 9.
And in this crazy life.
Coolest hits, the hottest stars. Warner Music Power Station, Thursday night at 10 on ATV World.
Reality hits hard, endless tears and laughter. Life is a series of spectacular dramas. The Korean Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong special, Korean Hour, Likeable or Not, Saturday afternoon at 5:30. They were the greatest inventions brought into the world by the brightest minds. Look back into wartime history. The engineering wonders will once again appear in front of your eyes. History Hour, Battle Stations, Sunday night at 8. In today's troubled times, seek purpose and passion with new visions. Live to the full extent of your potential. Enjoy everyday life with Joyce Meyer, Monday through Friday morning at 6:35.
It's all over? Think again. Here comes the next gourmet challenge. Portland's Wall of Fame. Man versus food. Tuesday night at 8.
In China's Xisha Islands, the jewel in the crown is Dongdao, or East Island. It's considered the most beautiful, but it's also one of the most difficult to reach. Sometimes 3 boat transfers are needed to pass the waters of varied, treacherous depths. And the weather must be on one side too. Waves towering 3 meters high can topple unprepared boats. Dongdao is 24 sea miles from Yangxing Island. 1.6 square kilometers in size, it's the second largest of the Xisha Islands. It has a beautiful seascape, but the real allure here is something else. Ribbons of white threading nimbly across the landscape, which can be seen some distance from the shore. Dongdao has 3 treasures. The red-footed booby, a seabird, is the most precious. With red legs and white plumage, it's known as the white spirit of the island. The red-footed booby has a reputation as a huge and hostile bird. Some say that these agile and powerful flyers swoop down on human beings and violently peck at their heads. But there's little evidence to support these claims. What exactly is the temperament of these seabirds then? How do they live? And why has Dongdao Island become a sanctuary for them? Li Changxiao is a veteran soldier of the garrison troop. He's also a guide on the island. Having served on Dongdao for 13 years, he knows every corner like the back of his hand. He's highly knowledgeable and a self-taught expert on the seabirds here. Li leads the way to the habitat of the booby. This so-called BMW is the most luxurious vehicle on the island, and it's on its way to discover the treasures of Dongdao. The road is pretty disorienting. One moment we seem to be riding through tropical rainforests, and then suddenly it opens up to a prairie. The journey must finish by foot because the noise of the vehicle will disturb the birds. As soon as we entered the woods, white birds streamed across the sky. Would they attack? Someone asked if we needed a helmet to put on. Mr. Lee laughed and dismissed our worries. He said the birds are more concerned about their own safety. According to Li Changshou, boobies do not attack human beings unless they're threatened, so the rumors about their hostility are entirely unfounded. An adult booby can grow to about 70 centimeters in length with a wingspan of some 1.5 meters and weigh about 1 kilo. Its long and narrow body facilitates its long-distance flying and hunting for food. The red-footed boobies living on Dongdao are under the state's Category 2 Wildlife Protection List included in China's Red Book of Endangered Animals and Birds. Seabirds top the marine ecosystem food chain and are an index species for the health of a marine ecosystem. According to a rough count, around 70,000 boobies live on Dongdao, and within the domain of China, the island is the only habitat for red-footed boobies. So why have they converged on this island?
建呢就是选择这东岛作为它的栖息地，是因为这个地方有大面积的那个白壁松花树，这里的白壁松花树十分繁茂，就是占整个岛屿的1/2。在这个地方，就是说白壁松花树为它提供了十分优越的居住条件。
The abundant Sciodus grandis has turned Dongdao into a green oasis on the blue sea. The trees have thick branches and white patches on their bark. They are the reason that the red-footed boobies have chosen this island as their home.
白壁松花树它本身有个就是比较好的条件，就是它的树枝比较柔韧，就在这个海岛地方啊，就是说抗海风吹的能力比较强。还有一个它的枝桠上面呢，就是一般是三叉形的，适合它的巢的稳固性。最主要是这种原因。还有一个就是它的站立，就是它的枝桠在上部啊，就是一般只有手指那么粗，然后鸟爪一抓握啊比较紧，就是说在风吹呀的雨打的情况下，就是狂风摇得很大，它都不怕的。
Locals call this tree the wind-resistant tongue. When a typhoon attacks, thin branches and small offshoots break off, allowing an easier and less destructive passage for the gales. The victims of these gales are mostly chicks. After a typhoon dies down, the garrison troops go into the woods to save the chicks blown to the ground from the nests. It requires certain skill to put them back to their nests again.
首先控制它的脖子，把脖子插入之后，拿住它的嘴，然后由另外一个人，把它装进布袋，布袋上拴根绳，就是说有绳子的，绳子是由爬树的人带到树上去，然后把绳子放下来，把鸟提上去，然后爬树的人就是说是他背上一般也别一根杆子，好，如果是把鸟就是说他把袋子提到手里面之后，他就会就是说拿手捏住鸟的头，然后把鸟就是说顺着这样提出来，好。 把它放到这个树棍，也是这样一个叉子。鸟适合粘这种树杈是吧？好，就粘到上面，好，然后慢慢放到它的巢上去，它就会自己走下去了。这样就是成功了。好，但是也有许多就是不成功的，比如说有的台风太大了，把整个树枝吹断了，那我们就无能为力了。因为就是说，救鸟的条件必须就是巢要存在，这样青鸟也会才会养它。好，如果是你放到其他位置，青鸟也不会认它的。
The soldiers must wear gloves when saving their birds. If the chicks have human odor about them, their parents will not feed them anymore, and the little birds will starve to death. After trial and error and repeated practice, the garrison men have developed a set of effective rescue methods. They have each saved a countless number of chicks during their service on the island. It takes 3 or 4 years for chicks to grow into adulthood, and their lifespan is about 20 or 30 years. Each couple breeds only once a year, and each brood only one egg. So every bird is a single child, at least for that year. Boobies are like mandarin ducks. They're lifetime loyal spouses. The two male boobies are opponents in a love offensive to win the heart of this female bird. One of them holds up his head, producing a loud announcement of his love. But the lady is not impressed. Then the other suitor trots over to show his love off to the lady, flattering her by nodding and bowing. The female bird stays at the site of her choice for 2 or 3 days after her suitor's arrival, and the match is usually concluded. Next, the couple will build their nest on the site. The husband shows his gallantry by taking over all the home building responsibilities, while his wife watches out for thieves. Mating boobies become even more beautiful. The male's bill turns yellowish, and the female's blue bill gains luster. From September to April is their breeding season. How do these seabirds bear and rear their children? Usually, it takes between 1 and 3 weeks for the birds to find their partner and build their nests. To save time and energy, some boobies opt to make use of an available nest, even by invading the homes of others and driving their original owners out. The homestead battle is fierce because the nest will belong to the winner. Usually, the original couple fight side by side against the invader, who's usually defeated and ousted. Boobies' nests are large, around 70 centimeters in diameter, but they're coarse and shabby, no more than a rough platform made of twigs and straw. Their loose structure makes them vulnerable to the wind. After the nest is built, a couple will copulate and lay an egg. They'll take turns to hatch the egg. The test of life for the young starts when the brooding process begins. The egg is frail and must be protected by the warm chest of a parent. The embryo will die if the egg is away from a parent's body temperature for 20 minutes. The couple will take turns to go out and get food. The one that stays sometimes sits straight through for 2 or 3 days, and it'll sit towards the sun to replenish its body temperature. If a typhoon comes and blows the egg to the ground, or one of the parents is lost, the egg will not hatch. Even if the chick can break out of the egg, the chance for its survival is almost zero. About 45 days later, the chick breaks out of the eggshell. Its tender skin is red all over, and its fluff is short and thin. The baby cannot adjust its body temperature and still needs the warmth of its parents.
就是说，继续这样就持续11天，在它羽毛长出来之后，它可能就会钻出父母亲的怀抱，然后就是说，在自然的阳光啊、空气下就能暴露着了。好，然后就是像这种情况呢，就是说，成鸟，它就会有意识的为就是说站在就是挡风啊，或者是顶阳的一面，就是为它的子女， 遮风挡阳光，就是怕它暴晒嘛。
The booby grows like a swan. About 100 days later, the chick's plumage turns from white to brownish, and its maturity becomes evident with each passing day. Eventually, it learns to fly. At this stage, it's like an adolescent. The chick, as a bird, grows into full adulthood only when it becomes sexually mature. An adult booby has a white plumage. Its bill is light blue, and the base of the bill is red. Its wings are long and narrow, and its 14 wedge-shaped tail feathers are very helpful when it fleets over the sea. The boobies live on flying fish and cuttlefish. These are flying fish and cuttlefish left over by their diners. It's very difficult to find food in tropical waters, and the parents must fly dozens and even 100 kilometers to get enough food for their young. It's usually a full day's work. Boobies have their own way of feeding their young, too. A parent keeps its mouth open while the chicks dive into the bill, into the parent's throat, and picks out the food from it. After 8 months of mouth-to-mouth feeding, the chick will set off on its own and live an independent life, just like its parents do. But who are these birds' natural enemies? An ornithologist from Hainan has the answers.
街鸟它的天敌相对还是比较少的，那么现在它最重要的天敌实际上是人为减氮、人为干扰，还有台风。 这样对它繁殖的影响降低了它的繁殖成功率，所以呢，使得它种群数量会降低。如果这些因素去掉的话，那街鸟它的天敌相对来说比较少的。
They're good friends who met doing volunteer work. Day in, day out, they organize neighborhood activities, go out together, and help each other out like good neighbors and good friends do. One of them has recovered from mental illness. That's right, a person recovering from mental illness can integrate into society and live a healthy life. What's important is that there are supportive families, caring neighbors, and a good friend or two.
Dongdao has more than 70,000 red-footed boobies, and other birds are few and far between. Occasionally, there are a few roaming white egrets and wild ducks. A great part of the island is covered by tall trees, but why does it have a homogeneous bird population? Neither ornithologists nor the garrison men could give us a full and complete answer for this question. While the seabirds were performing in the sky, our guide suddenly became excited and gestured for us to follow him. Our cameraman grabbed his apparatus and ran after the guide immediately. Wild bovines had been spotted, the second treasure of the island. But within a blink of the eye, the animals had vanished. Wild bovines are vigilant. This pond is the only source of drinking water on the island for the bovines, so we decided to try our luck the next morning. These wild bovines are actually descendants of domesticated animals. There are different stories about their migration to the island. However, all the stories agree that the bovines' ancestors were domesticated animals which came to the island from other areas inland. We were told that the herd maneuvers stealthily and quickly, and the garrison men had not spotted them for almost a year. The chance of seeing the wild bovines depended strictly on luck, not patience. At 6 o'clock the next morning, we waited for the bovines. But luck didn't seem to be with us today. Other than a few egrets and ducks, nothing had come into view when Lee brought our breakfast at 9 o'clock. He also informed us that he'd discovered a nest where a booby was hatching. We decided to watch the birds instead. The nest wasn't too high up, so our cameraman decided to climb onto the tree and place his camera at the closest distance possible. As he got close to the bird, Li Chengshao gestured him to stop. The bird, alarmed, had risen up on its feet, exposing the egg. If the camera got any closer, the unborn bird may die of exposure. He started to back off with his camera and got off the tree quickly. Just then, someone uttered a stifled cry. Wild bovines! Then, the wild animal suddenly discovered us and immediately veered round to escape. Like trained soldiers, they retreated as if in a military formation. They broke off into 3 groups, and each group had a leader to bring up the rear. The watchful guard stood there staring at us and turned round only when his companions had all left. The departing animals left behind a trail of trampled grassland, as if it had been run over by a tractor. The bovines live on wild fruits and Chotus grandis leaves. If their number expands unchecked, they'll threaten the growth of the Chotus grandis woods and cut the food chain down of the red-footed boobies. So the garrison men shoot a few wild bovines regularly to control the size of the herd. It's like one shot that kills 2 birds, so to speak, protecting the boobies and providing the men a feast for a change. This is one reason why the sight of men sends the animals off in flight. However, the garrison troops are never happy to shoot the bovines. They've also tried to provide something special for them.
这边那里面还建了个为了我们这个牛喝水，还建了个池子，就是用水泥砌了一个河。水槽啊，大概长度大概是2到3米，1尺左右。
On our way back to the army barracks, we saw Reef Penthus, the 3rd treasure of Dongdao. The plant is found only on East Island in Taiwan. Its roots can grow into the cracks of rocks and survive very harsh conditions. The plant doesn't need fresh water. If it is transplanted to a gentler environment, it may not grow as well. The earliest known studies of the birds on Shisha Islands were made by French ornithologists. One of their reports in the summer of 1926 reads, "Red-footed boobies breed on Yangqing Island. Some nests are lower than 2 meters from the ground. Many chicks stay in the bush while their parents bring food to them." Later, some Chinese researchers also went to Shisha and found that many of its islands were covered by thick layers of bird droppings, suggesting that they were once full of birds. Carbon-14 studies determined the droppings to be mostly between 4,000 and 5,000 years old. The number of birds on these islands at that time was estimated to exceed 1 million. But why have all the other Shisha Islands been abandoned by the birds, while only Dongdao has remained as the home of the boobies?
这个原因可以从2个方面去考虑。第一方面是全球性的变化呢，也有很多鸟类在全球性、全世界范围内都在减少，所以这其中的一些尖鸟可能它的种群数量本身也在下降，这是第一个。第二个层面，可能因为有一些小岛，那么干扰比较大，或者比如自然灾害，比如像台风啊这些经常袭击，降低了它的繁殖成功率，所以它的种群数量会有所减少。
台风一来啊， 这鸟啊打落一地，这小鸟啊，小鸟的打落一地，打落了，我们就把这个鸟啊，叫它扶起来，又再送到海边。它的这个鸟很怪，就是它到海边啊，它就可以飞，到水里面呢，就是它可以用这个水浪，这个风浪啊，把它扶起来，它就飞起来。你放在地上，它飞不了。
Under the sponsorship of China National Science Foundation and with the help of the garrison troops, the University of Science and Technology of China has conducted a research project on the ecology of reproduction for the red-footed booby since 2003. The Dongdao garrison has also drawn up a bird protection pact, and their men and officers have followed it strictly. The flock on Dongdao is currently the only breeding population of the red-footed booby in China. It has about 35,500 pairs, accounting roughly for 10% of the world's total. It is the largest breeding population in the Western Pacific region and the second largest worldwide. Li Chengxiao summarizes his daily observations every night. Since 2003, he's assisted ornithologists from the University of Science and Technology, forwarding his observation reports regularly to the researchers. Bird lover Li is also an experienced photographer. He showed us some of his masterpieces. In the morning, both men and boobies start another busy day. The birds fly out to sea to get food for their family and guide the way for fishermen on the sea. During the day, fishermen will sail towards the destination of the boobies, casting nets where they converge. In the evening, the returning birds will lead the boats laden with the day's catch back to shore. The fishermen cherish the booby as their navigator, and the soldiers on this marine oasis maintain their duty of protecting the bird's home.
Coming up, the pulse. World at a glance today. With summer approaching, it's time to bid farewell to hot pots. So what is the best substitute during the hot summer days?
One of you guys ever been to the Rainbow? We're taking Ursula tonight. It's her birthday. What about Phoebe's birthday?
Where's Joey?
Classic sitcom, Friends. It's good to see you again. The world's finest are here. Celebrating the arrival of fabulous summer in Vienna. Music is in the air. Vienna Philharmonic Summer Night Concert 2011. Saturday night at 8. Hot topics of our time. Key issues of the day. Different perspectives and comprehensive views. Newsline. The forum, the news, the discussion. Sunday night at 7. Dare the impossible.
Feeling a little bit ill.
Bear the unbearable. In the end, you still see them smile. Living with the Mech Tribe. The Adventures of Mark and Ollie. Sunday night at 10.
The ultimate luxurious experience. Delight your taste buds with the finest Chinese cuisine in Guangzhou. Entry is by invitation only. Luxury China, Monday night at 8. It's all over? Think again. Here comes the next gourmet challenge, the Hellfire. Man vs.
There are only 3 ways to access Xisha: by a naval ship, by Changsha 3, a replenishment ship dispatched by the Hainan provincial government twice a month, and the last option, by a military plane, which usually takes off only for military missions. The best time to go to Xisha is during April to October. The sea is sapphire and calm, like a mirror. In April, we took the replenishment ship Changsha 3 to the archipelago. Changsha 3 is a part of a trio of ships. Changsha 1 was